What up, my fellow challenge lovers? Welcome to The Challenge Historian, where we dive deep into all things MTV's The Challenge, past, present, or future. If it's happening in the Challenge universe, we are here to document it. I am your host and dedicated Challenge historian, Jacob Hollaball. Thank you so very much for joining me here on this Friday or over this weekend, whenever you may be listening. We're tapping in to talk launch special. As discussed on the season preview, if the launch special was worth a recap, it would get a recap. And guess what? It was very much worth a recap. So here we are on this Friday, coming to you to talk all things launch special for Battle of the Eras, and a little even extra, just kind of, as the launch special was, a bonus season preview here, if you will. We'll get into the agenda in the episode here in just one moment. Quick programming reminders before we begin. First and foremost, a big thank you. There was a ton of feedback. A lot of you reached out to give ideas, suggestions, possible links, all kinds of things for how I could watch the first two episodes of the show while in London and Paris for episodes 1 and 2 the next couple of weeks. Thank you to all of those who have given me ideas. I've got a long list. I've got a lot of options. I think we'll be able to get at least one, if not multiple of them, to work. But if you are listening, and maybe even if you're out there, on that screener list, someone that has like true early access, feel free to hit me up. That would obviously be the greatest thing, the best way to go about this. But otherwise, any suggestions, keep them rolling in. I'm going to keep compiling my list so that when next Wednesday comes and I land in, well, actually, I'll be flying during the episode. There is a chance, forget when my plane takes off, I might be able to have the episode downloaded or watched immediately, right before I take off. I take off at like 9 o'clock that night, Wednesday night. So we'll see one way or the other, though. Eras episode 1 and 2 will be out as soon as they can be for week 2. That one will be no later than Friday. I land on that Thursday. So even if I have to wait Friday, that Friday morning will be the latest it would be. But for episode 1 next week, it could be Thursday, it could be Friday, it could be Sunday, it could be a double episode the next week. Who knows? And I hope it will not be the end of that sentence, but it will hopefully be as soon as it can be, right after the episode has aired. Other news, franchise recap videos are going to continue today through Monday or Tuesday. We'll have it wrapped up by Monday or Tuesday. So thank you for all the support and everyone who's been watching and commenting on with those. Definitely keep pointing out. I know I'm missing stuff, especially on these seasons post season 20. I'm doing this all mostly off memory. Anything I miss, keep pointing out. Go to that YouTube, point it out, let me know. And for those podcast only folks, yes, there will be a third podcast compiling the last 13 of those into one. So that's what's coming up. As for today, the launch special recap, 3 parts to it. First and foremost, an actual just recap of the episode, some high level thoughts, and then a couple specific things that set up for the season. Second, we will do a quick super trailer breakdown, not 40 full thoughts like the original trailer, which I recorded that podcast, edited it, and quite literally when I went to YouTube Studio to upload that podcast was when I saw, 2 minutes ago, they had dropped the super trailer. So that was amazing timing. So we'll look at that super trailer here today. And then third and finally, I am going to give some updated predictions for the who leaves first in the Eras invite, who makes the finals, and who wins. I may change some, I may not, but the more I thought about it the last couple of days, I was like, I want to change a few of those. And I had a couple good comments point out some things, some holes in some of my logic and wishes and other predictions of like, these don't match up. And I like for my predictions to match up. So we will be doing that. So recap of the launch special, super trailer breakdown, final updated predictions, and then we're out and we await episode 1, kind of episode 2, Battle of the Eras. Thanks for being here. Subscribe if you haven't already. If you are a podcast audio only listener, let's crank out some reviews this week. Maybe get those review numbers up. To all those who have been on the YouTube channel subscribing, a lot of new folks over there. Thank you, love you, appreciate you. Here we go. Launch special recap. Let's start with some high-level thoughts, just a couple high-level things about the whole episode in general, and then I want to run through 4 or 5 kind of specific moments we see and what it portends for the season upcoming. I do not know if I just used the word portend correctly, but I like to think that I did. High-level thoughts first. They should do this every season. They kind of have been, I think I always reference the Spies, Lies, and Allies one that was so good and really was truly an episode 1, but they did it then and it felt very much like, well, because over half of this cast is not only new to the franchise, but new to reality TV in the States. They all came from around the world. And so it was very necessary. But I loved that episode. I've liked all the ones they've done, even when it's tended towards more towards the just promotional and not even like content of them actually being there for the season. That's fine. But this version of it, this episode is going to be the first day they all arrive. There's a big welcome party. It's everyone getting to know each other. It's a little history, a little foreshadowing, a little where are they now, all mixed in together. It leads into the first night in the house and like the house walk in and the first opening party that night. It's just basically day one of them all getting out of the hotel rooms and into a challenge house is fantastic. It might be like my favorite part of the entire season. I hope there's many more favorite parts to have this current season, but I love it. I love it. I love it. It's fantastic. It seems fun for the cast, and they should do it every season. They should also do, I'm going to reference, Mark was on Bananas podcast this week talking launch special, talking this season, and they said a bunch of good things that I kind of agreed with. One of which was, hey, we're in the hotel for 4 or 5 days. They told a couple quick stories of like, they weren't supposed to come out of their hotel rooms, but they all did. They hung out in the hallways. He references Mark, Bananas, and CT just sitting on a balcony having a glass of wine one night. I'm like, I put a camera there. Put a camera there. I'm all for airport, hotel, anything. Just give them their own personal cameras that they get later on. All that stuff. The more of it, the better. Second thing then, Devin and Devon being there. One is amazing. I love both of them. I love that they get this opportunity, that they get to be there, be a part of this, especially again, like considering we already got 40 cast members at TJ. So like that the fact that they're adding another 2 people is just incredible, that they're putting the kind of resources behind to do that, and wonderful for those 2 women that I really, really love and enjoy to get to be there. And having them there just made it feel it made it feel like it was like the red carpet event before the show, which I think is clearly what they were kind of going for there, especially with the beginning of it, the walk-ins, and it just made it feel big. It made it feel monumental. It made it feel different and important compared to the other seasons, and I loved that, and I loved that for them. And then, as I just said, 43 people. It's just a lot of people. It's a lot of people, because you got the 2 hosts, or Devin and Devon, and then TJ, plus the 40 cast members. It's a lot of people to get screen time, to get to say anything, to get to hear from, see. And so I'm honestly interested in this launch special being 2 hours long. If they want to, lots of seasons recently, I've complained a little bit of like, I don't know that this needed to be 18 episodes. I don't know that this needed to be 15. I kind of always loved that 12 episode sweet spot. I'm in. If you need to do an 18 episode order for your whatever program you've sold the show to in the future, I'm into this opening night. Like, make this 3 episodes. I don't care. Like, if you have 40 people there, that is, because, there's tons of people, and there was tons of comments, of everyone that tries to read into the edit of, we didn't see this person. We didn't see this person. And I was like, well, yeah, because it's 40 minutes of content, and there's 43 people there, technically a part of the cast. Like, you're not going to hear everyone talk. You're barely going to see people, especially when they deservedly are like, we're going to do 5 minutes on the Cara and Laurel. We're going to do 5 minutes on this. And it's like, okay, well, you get like 6 things like to do that for. So I'm down for it being multiple hours long in the future, or even multiple episodes, and just calling these the real episodes. Anything. I like it in general. The more, the better. Specific things of interest then. Going kind of chronological order here. I think I got like 4 or 5 things that stood out that I want to touch on that kind of, again, go with the entire season. The first one, they open in Bananas wants to be on Era 1. And he not only wants to be on Era 1, but he is also then, as far as his feelings towards his team, he's both a little jealous that he's, again, not on Era 1 and that his team isn't like stacked with all of his friends, but also a little bit happy that his team isn't necessarily stacked with his friends, and that the guys on his team are, he feels, pretty beatable. That part is coming more from his podcast than we get in the episode. He was pretty blatant about it, honestly, in his podcast, which I was like, damn, dude, I don't know if you're like revealing something here, or if you're just have no interest in, placating the feelings of the other 4 gentlemen that are joining you on your team. And add to all of this that he also has a workable relationship with Rachel Robinson that we see during this when he wants to be on Era 1. She's the one that they do the little toast, and it's like, you don't admit it, you want to be on our team. All of this makes sense to me. And all of this, I think, is going to be a big storyline. It makes sense. I think if Wes was there, this would be way different. Bananas would be much more fiercely like, hey, our era, you guys did it, but our era is our era and we're the best one, rah, rah. Or if a Tyler or a Paula was there with him. I know Paula it wasn't going to happen. I don't think it was happening with Tyler's schedule. I hope they at least called him. But without those, or of course, Kenny and Evan, possibly if they could have been there, those were the people he is real close with or connected to as far as his actual era. So with none of those people there, it's like, yeah, Laurel and Cara, but you never really worked with them. You never really got along with them. You were never like totally connected to them, storylines or otherwise. And so he's kind of a man out of era both ways. Like he very much feels like he should be with era 1 or should be with era 3, where Leroy and Tony, and I know Nany's not there, but like he was always connected to Nany in a big way. And so he's more connected to 1 and 3 than he would have been even to the best case version of 2 for him. And certainly with the cast members for 2 that we got, honestly, even era 4 after the last few seasons where he's been, kind of in Vacation Alliance and otherwise. Rachel's feelings towards Bananas was kind of my most anticipated relationship in the house. If she's okay working with him, that unlocks his ability to actually be in cahoots with Era 1, because he's good with all those guys, but it was the women of like, well, if Rachel and Tina, who known not fans of Bananas in the past, and certainly Rachel on certain seasons we've seen not very appropriately not being a fan of Bananas, going all the way back to like the island and things of that nature. But if they're willing to play nice, work with, that opens up an actual really strong alliance going both ways for if this ends up being either the other teams do some sort of voting on teams, or if just once you get out of the team aspect, which I imagine they will do some point in the season. And last thing on the Bananas of it all, he seems to think, and he and Mark kind of allude to here in this launch special and on that podcast they did together, that you might be facing your own team in eliminations. I was kind of betting on that going in, of like, if they're going to be in their teams for some length of time, I do think it would be Invasion of the Champion style, where like, hey, we want to see you matched up against the other heavy hitters in your era. We want you to have to go against your own versus the other teams, at least for a little bit. And if that's the case, again, he on the podcast was very confident of like, this is going to be amazing for me if these, instead of going against the era 1 guys in an elimination, I got to go against the other people in era 2, which we'll see. Certainly on the physical athletic side, I think he wouldn't be the winner of era 1 or 3 or 4, but very clearly is on era 2. But a lot of the eliminations have a lot to do with anything but physicality or strength or anything of that nature. But if he is alluding to something, and if I am correct that they will go against their own team, at least in the beginning, in the era invite, and maybe the first few rounds of eliminations after that, then that helps a couple of people in a big way, and that hurts a couple other people in a big way. It helps and puts in a great spot, not just Bananas, but also Rachel, the era 1 women. I like her odds going against her own. Jody a little bit too, but I take Rachel even above Jody there. Tori on era 3, I love her chances in eliminations if they're going against their own team. Jenny and Casey in era 4, love their chances against the rest of their team. And then in a bad spot, somewhat the reverse of this a little bit, but it's a tough spot for Aviv and Kellyanne, with Cara, Laurel, and Emily as the 3 they would have to potentially go against if they're going into elimination versus their own. And it's a really tough spot for my guy Devin, who I love so much, but he would be really hoping for, give me the elimination that's puzzles or math or something silly. Definitely don't give me a headbanger, because it's Leroy, Tony in unbelievable shape, Jordan, and Corey, and Devin's going to have a hard time there if he gets thrown in versus own in anything that is of the physical variety. Mental variety, obviously he's doing quite well. He's got the biggest variance of just what's the elimination. My odds go from like 5% chance or 95% chance based on what the game is, because I have significant advantage over my team in these things and significant disadvantage in these things. So put some people in interesting spots if that ends up being the case. Next thing, Laurel versus Cara. Going to be really quick. Obviously, we covered this story because it was the main storyline of All Stars 4 quite a lot. I'm sure it'll be covered quite a lot this season. The only thing I'll say for now, I think Paulie's analysis is spot on. I think the last time I'll reference Mark in Bananas podcast, but Bananas does say something astute that I think I knew, but I hadn't put together. Both Cara and Laurel are only children. I think that does play a factor potentially in this potential sibling-like relationship that they have. And I think Paulie's analysis is spot on. Cara looks at this is big sister that, you know, our first season we did together and she was amazing and dominant and I went home first. And then we've had these careers and we've both done amazing and I've risen up, but I've never got that respect from her. And so, yeah, I think his analysis was spot on. I don't think Laurel is ever going to give her that, you know, validation in that respect in a consistent manner. I think it could definitely happen in instances, but it's not going to be this thing. You know, it's always going to be like, well, even if I get it, I feel like she might just take it away the next moment. It's never going to be good. We'll see what that story amounts to this season. Rachel's toast. An amazing, amazing, wonderful moment. And loved every second of it. Loved that Rachel got to be the one to give up and give the big toast. And loved that she put the spotlight on the women of the challenge. Loved the montage they put together. Great job by the editing team. Really, really good clips. And I think I've been pretty clear in my years of covering this show that the treatment of the men and the women for the majority of the history of this show has been very skewed and had a lot of things that the production was doing to incentivize certain things that were not great or to just prop up and promote and give chances to the male stars that the female stars didn't get. And it is why folks like Veronica and Rachel and Tina and Coral and many others in the first era or two were so important for, you know, how they broke through that, how they still shone bright instead, all of that. Hope I've been clear about that. So this was a very deserved, which is an understatement if there's ever been one, deserved speech, awesome clip package, the whole thing. I do, though, want to make one tangentially related point. She references the real ratings at the end. And she does not, you know, she's still referencing the women bring the ratings. So put that to the side. But it made me think of, and it was at least a little half bit similar to the OGs bring the ratings that we have seen a lot of talk of. We've heard from many of the OGs referencing at different times on podcasts or at live events or on social media, you know, that people watched us and they don't watch the new people. And we were responsible for the ratings. And now we're back. So the ratings will go back up and all this stuff that seems without always saying it directly to basically say people liked watching us. People don't like watching the new kids and the ratings are the fault of the new kids and the new era. And I want to talk about that. I know it's tangentially related, so it doesn't really have anything to do with the toast, which again was amazing and wonderful. And I loved every bit of it. The thing I want to say, though, about the ratings, because I think it will be a discussion, because I do think the first couple episodes will be much higher rated and much higher watched than the last few seasons have been. And that is that the OGs in the first era of the show, in the first 10 to 15 seasons of the show, those were pre-social media. Those were pre-streaming. Those were when cable dominated and millions of people every night turned on MTV no matter what was on. And like literally like 100 million or more people had MTV available to them in their home because about 100 million or more were signed up for cable packages that included that channel at different points during the first 10 to 15 to even 20 seasons of this show. That is not the case anymore. That is like half of the case as far as people with access to the channel, and with all channels, MTV included, all reality TV, all the network stuff, everything. Precipitous drop off in the last decade and a half. We're all aware of this. We just kind of don't acknowledge it as much when it comes to our favorite show. There was a big reason why when USA 2 came around, it was like a big deal. It's like it's not only on CBS that has a little bit higher viewership overall, but it's on Paramount Plus, thank goodness. And you know, that has a way bigger number, and we're finally in the streaming age, and All Stars is on Paramount streaming age, the whole thing. For a little history context, we dipped below the challenge, I think peaked in the early season. There was a couple seasons where we hit 2 million people were watching an episode once or twice. For the most part, the heyday of the show, it would be like 1.5 million watched for a handful of seasons there. And we had about a 10 season-ish run where it was like over 1 million every episode, no problem. We dipped below 1 million around free agents. Both free agents and Exes 2, 25 and 26, had some episodes that got over 1 million, some that did not. And Bloodlines was the first one then that officially dipped below 1 million all the way through. Bloodlines averaged about 700,000 viewers an episode, and it's continued downward ever since. And that mirrors the continued lesser cable subscriptions and the more and more people that are watching on streaming. And so that is a huge factor. The fact that many, many folks are like me and watching all the way growing up throughout and now, adjusting to this new landscape and when can we watch? And of course, there isn't as many new fans coming in just because there isn't access for them as much as and it isn't the new thing. There's all these other factors. All I'm trying to say is when the OG people kind of take those shots of like people watch us and people don't watch these new kids, it's not 100% or anywhere near, not even majority, because of the cast. And like these people aren't as good, the old people are. Yes, there is a dramatic difference in the types of personalities and the characters and the process you have to go on to get onto the show from then versus anything recent. And it does definitely, all of my favorites, mostly come from those old seasons as well. But I just want to give some respect and some defense of the Era 4 people, even some of the Era 3 people, of like, this show didn't go way down in ratings from its peak just because of certain people leaving and the new people that came in. Tons and tons of factors that were part of it. End of that long diatribe. Amanda makes some friends this episode. She is one of the focal points of it, which is great spot for her. I mean, a non-champion, non-finalist is like the featured one, maybe the featured player of this episode. Pretty incredible look. Well done by her. Her and Cara making up is very, very great. It's very fun to see. It's very lovely to see. The reference back to, I had forgotten the like, I hope your horse dies line, which is pretty wild. And it's great that they can move past that and understand that was just something, you say in the heat of battle on reality TV. It's also a strategic move, though, by Amanda to make up here. She knows, she has to know, her own team and her are probably not going to get along. Her big enemy, Tori, is on her team, and Tori is much closer with more of the people on her team than she is. So if that comes down to it, things are going to side with her and against Amanda. She probably knows this. She's definitely smart enough to know this. So making friends with Cara in Era 2 is a good idea, as is, she doesn't seek this one out. It is brought to her. Rachel and Tina adopting Amanda as a mean girl. Unbelievable, wonderful, feels right. Loved this scene. It might have been my favorite interaction of the entire episode. And though it is also additional political ammunition, if we do get to a chance where other teams are voting for your team who's going in, or you make it past the teams. Again, I'm just assuming there is a section of this game that is not in teams. I can only hope that I'm wrong. I would love to be wrong, but I think we all know that we're going to have a couple different formats this season. So if Amanda makes it past into the more individual section, or if there is some, Era 3 doesn't vote for Era 3, Era 1, 2, and 4 vote for who goes in, then these political connections could be a big, big boon for Amanda's game. Finally, then, pool party is great. The house is awesome. The pool party is another point for this being 2 hours, or give us more of that pool party in episode 1. I'd watch as much of it as they want to show us. Romance is in the air early. We knew, I didn't even really reference, we're coming into this with 2 different couples coming into the house, Paulie and Cara, Nerys and Horacio, and I think those are the only 2. If I'm forgetting someone, I'm sorry. There's a lot of people to keep track of, but there's going to be a lot more couples that happen in the house. We get to see multiple of them here. I'm guessing at least 2 or 3 at minimum showmances, probably more, probably 2 or 3 extra hookups on top of that. I think this is going to be a very horny cast. As much as the cast has gotten older and older, the amount of people here that are single versus in a long-term relationship of any kind is, percentage single is much higher still. So that's great. The house is awesome. I love the layout. I love the bar at the top of the stairs. Unbelievable. I love that they don't have bunk beds, but they have a half a dozen or more people to a room. Amazing. You got to fit 40 beds in there somehow. So it's pretty tough. Or 32, I guess, if they're going to get rid of 8 people before they even get a chance to sleep. I'm waiting for the first person to push beds together. It's the biggest thing on seasons with so many people. As you eliminate some, you're like, wait, they only needed those 32 beds for a couple nights. Now there's a couple free. Who's going to pull them? Who's going to push the beds together? That whole thing. And finally, Jordan's entrance, where the launch special ends. It was really cool and really badass. I wonder if it was actually 2:30 in the morning. I bet it probably was. I don't know. I would be a little if the rest of the cast was actually just told like, "Hey, Jordan's here. Can you guys just like all go hide so he can walk through an empty house?" I could see them doing that, but I think this actually was he got there in the middle of the night and they were like, "This is going to be amazing. Like, let's go ahead and do it." It was badass. It's a little bit of a bummer for him that he misses the opening party, but it is awesome that he then gets this big moment to himself walking in. But I do want to point out for those who aren't on social or maybe don't follow him on social or just maybe miss this, even if you do, he has come out and said like he basically gave up his racing career. I don't know if you haven't been following it at all, you didn't know over the last year or two, he got picked up and started driving in different racing circuits. And I don't know anything about racing to tell you. I know he's sponsored by Hyundai, I think, or whatever, but I don't know how to tell you what circuit, what type of racing, anything like that, other than it looks badass, all the videos and everything he does. And it's like the professional, like lower level circuits or, it's not NASCAR or whatever, but it's all the other ones I don't know about. But he gave it up essentially. He told them, I'm going to go do this, and the season was still going. They had to get a different driver, and once you're off, and now he doesn't have anywhere to continue that career in. So that's a huge sacrifice, and I think we should just all appreciate that because it's already, like we said in the preview, not having Wes there is tough to not, I really wanted all of the best men, all the best women there. And I feel like we got pretty close on both sides, but not all the way there. And if Jordan wasn't there, it'd be even more on the men's side of I really want to at least get him, Bananas, CT all in the house playing together again. And so shout out to him for doing that. I know he's getting paid to be there. I hope it's a very good amount. I'm sure it is, but it's a big sacrifice. And so glad he got this big entrance, at least to give him his nice big moment during the launch special. Quick run through of the super trailer then. Again, that dropped literally as I was uploading my season preview, where I had the shot for shot breakdown of the original trailer. Although this super trailer is mostly the original trailer with some stuff added in. I'm not gonna put this one on the screen, go shot for shot. We're not doing the whole long thing. I wrote down a handful of notes here as I went through, so I'll just run through them very quickly for you. And definitely, if you haven't seen the super trailer, seek it out. I don't think it gives any spoilers or anything of that nature. I think it's a well done, good trailer that just is a little longer and has a little extra stuff in it than the first one did, and is a good setup for the season. First and foremost, this is to the launch special and to the trailer. In the house, they have the new season logo icons. They have new little, they look like national park logos, more or less, for all 39 seasons. Can we get those? Can we get stickers of those, patches of those, something of those? Are those available? I haven't looked around. If not, I don't know. That's going to be a lot of attempted screenshots and pulling and different things, but we're going to try it. Those are cool. I like them a lot. Being in and around a city is really great. In the super trailer, we see that a little more there's a decent bit that goes on. They're staying in a city and they kind of stay around the city or, on the skyscrapers and different things for some of the challenges. And it's a reminder that this doesn't always have to be in the middle of nowhere, no touch point to civilization on these seasons. The cityscape is nice as a backdrop for a lot of these. There's very little water shown. Now, most of this is probably just because they're showing us, stuff from the first 2 to 3 to 4 episodes at most, trying to keep it as front loaded as possible. And maybe there's just not a water challenge really during that. But it did stand out that we see one Jordan coming out of the water is the one time we see, okay, there's someone in the water in a vest clearly doing a daily challenge. So, we'll see if that is very little water or if that's just because there's very little water in the first couple of episodes. The giant table for nominations and deliberation, or I can assume for nominations and deliberation, as well as dinner or hanging out whenever they want to use it. But that giant triangular table is going to be hilariously fun when only 2 or 3 people sit at it, as we see briefly in the super trailer. It's also going to be super fun when all 30 plus people sit at it and are yelling over each other. And at one end of the table, you can have one conversation and the other end, another one. It's going to be great. I love everything about it. Tori and Laurel are shown briefly dancing, having a good time together. And that just got me thinking of that'd be a nice little power alliance that could be made on the women's side. Definitely two big threats in the game. If they were, getting along, getting chummy, being friends, that could be something there. And then we get the moment, Laurel and Kara yelling. I do want to give, I guess this is like a tiny bit of a spoiler, but Derek came out very quickly and made it known, because in the moment, they wanted to draw flashbacks to when Laurel defended Kara back on Rivals, when she had Coca-Cola poured all over her head and was very wet. And this imagery definitely makes you think of that. It seems like maybe Kara's head is wet again, and there was people online of like, holy shit, did Laurel pour something on Kara? Like, that would be the meanest thing of all time. And Derek came out and said, like, made a note immediately, like, hey, we can't let that sit around and like people think that that's what's about to happen. She was, I think, re-dyeing her hair or something to that degree was why she was like that. So obviously what we see is a very real fight that looks very painful, and people are crying and yelling and all kinds of things. I think we should get ahead. I thought Derek was correct in pointing out, like, hey, let's get ahead of, like, let's not let people run with for weeks on end here that Laurel is going to pour something on Kara's head to redo that moment that she was there in defense of before. Not going to happen. But that moment looks wild, looks crazy, looks like a big blow up, as we'd expect between those two. And they make it seem like in that moment, they follow it with Emily's comment of, if I think there is a threat, I will remove it. And they clearly want us to believe that that moment is, they cut to, and is Emily in that moment as Laurel and Kara doing that. And it makes me believe they want us to think that's Emily saying that about Laurel. And I'm hopeful that it actually is that. I'm hopeful that's not little editing trickery. I'm hopeful that Emily's response to this, or just the tension on her own team between those two people, is, if there's a threat, I'll remove it. And I hope that she thinks that threat is Laurel, because the idea of Emily angling to face Laurel in an elimination of, like, we got to get rid of this person, I'll do it. Those two, Emily's the only one in the history of the show that could match up with Laurel, heads up, headbanger, physical elimination, size, strength, athleticism, the whole thing. They're in the same weight class, a division, if we got to do a headbanger. And I would love to see it. Please give it to me. Please give me that. Please let that not be editing trickery, but actually be Emily angling for Laurel's becoming a bit of a problem on our team. I will go in and take her out. That would be amazing. Final thing then, a lot of the same footage as we've said before. It's all from early on, as it should be. And that leads me to another little diatribe, if you'll allow it, on another conversation that's been out there on the social media street about the promotion of this season, and different people being upset about it and some people defending it. Wes is the main one out there of cast members, talking about, like, hey, all this is nonsense. This is the promotion. This launch special is the promotion. Like, it's all been fine. It's all been good. And, take it and enjoy it. And as usual, I'm kind of in the middle, but I do want to give my opinion of this, which is, I don't want more trailers. Certainly not. I don't want more clips. I've been clear in the past of, like, I hate the day before we get the 2-minute clip from the episode or from the show or whatever. I'm like, I don't want to see that. I want to see it live when it happens, when they air the episode. I don't want any long trailers, more clips, anything like that, anything that reveals anything about the season at all. I do not want any of that promotion. And I do think some people out there are, like, clamoring for, like, that style promotion, which I disagree with. But what I disagree with the Wesses of the world on are, and agree with most of the fandom of, like, we didn't know this was a thing until 2 days ago, like 4 days ago now in real time, but 2 days before. Like, it was the Monday before it aired on Wednesday, where we had for 2 months heard and seen commercials of the season starts on the 14th. And then on the 5th, they're like, surprise, there's a launch special on the 7th. And we're only, there's a couple commercials here or there. We're putting out like 1 or 2 posts on social media, and that's kind of it. And then I assume they're required, but like all of the cast members put out the post, which is good enough, and everyone knows about it or whatever. But I would like to be a little more aware of the launch special before it occurs. And I would like them to just say, like, the season starts on the 7th. Like, the season starts on the 7th with the launch special, and then the first true episode on the 14th, and make all the posters and the banners say the 7th. So we're prepared and we're thinking about that. And shamelessly, podcasters like me are not like, oh, it starts on the 14th. I'll do my season preview 1 week earlier on the 7th. Well, that was a bad idea. There's an episode that night, things like that. And I would also love, and this is the part of the promo I would love to see them do more of. And yes, this will be shameless too, but they don't need to show us more of the current season at all. But they could help set it up by doing things like I'm doing my franchise recaps. The show itself has the resources to have someone, it could be me, that would be amazing, but it certainly doesn't have to be. They could do something like that. They could recap all of the old seasons. They could do a bunch of lists or content from those. They could do what the great Alan Aguirre does with his amazing player profiles for the season. He did a blog post every day up until the beginning of the season. He's still going. I think he's about to finish, or maybe just did. Every single player with like deep histories of them, clips, pictures, the whole thing. It's amazing work by Alan over on Medium. Check that out if you haven't. If you've never, I shout him out all the time, but if you never have followed, never checked out his stuff, that stuff is great. That type of things, they could be doing that. Additional content that doesn't reveal anything about the season, doesn't take away from the season at all, but gets the community more activated and back in the mindset of consuming the challenge. That stuff, there could be way more of from them. They could manage better. I said on the preview, like your YouTube channel has expired links as the links for it, like little things like that. So I agree in part with Wes of like, they did a fine job. We don't need more of the trailers, things like that. But I agree in part with the fandom of like, you could get us a little more activated. You could give us a little more heads up of when things are actually going to be. That's my rant on the promotion of the show. End there. And now let's touch up our finals predictions. I need to change just a couple. I just didn't feel good about them. I did them the other day, and they were updated from the original ones I did in the cast reaction podcast way, way, way long ago, and those were always going to be updated. I meant the ones I did a couple days ago to be final, but I would like to change a few of them. Okay, so I'm gonna start from scratch. A lot of them are gonna end up the same, but I just want to tinker a little bit the more I've thought about it, and now after seeing the super trailer and launch special. Also, keynote here. I should have said this at the start of this podcast and the season preview. This is spoiler free. I had one slip up, which is pretty good going into a season of this magnitude. There's one person in the cast that I know does not make it very far because I saw a random comment that showed up and had to delete. And so I have one single spoiler of one cast member out of 40. I wish it was 0. It's 1, but that is it. And so barely anything. I always try to be spoiler free myself, but I damn sure make sure that this channel and this podcast are spoiler free at all times. I'm never going to share spoilers with you. I am never trying to weave in some spoiler I know about into my analysis, and I am for sure never going to make random predictions about finalists and winners if I have any idea who actually makes it to those places. So you're spoiler free here. You always will be. I do my best with comments on YouTube, things and comments on Instagram posts, all that stuff. If anything ever pops up, to get it deleted immediately. Shout out to all of you, because thankfully that is a rare occurrence. So let's keep it that way. Let's keep this a spoiler-free community. And now for my slightly tinkered with and updated predictions for this season, starting with who will be eliminated in the Era's invite. I'm still going off of they're going to do 2 people are going to be out before the actual game starts. 2 people from each era, a man and a woman. So I'm going to stick with that. For Era 1, I think it's going to be Aneesa and, hold your breath, CT. Call me crazy. I've flip-flopped the whole him on the stretcher. What if that's during because I think most of the trailer is like during the Era's invite thing, whatever it constitutes over the next 2 episodes. What if that's during that and he decides he can't go on and do the rest of the season? What if they're actually showing it to us because like it's going to be a huge moment in the first couple of episodes and they don't have a lot of CT coverage to work with, so they said screw it, let's just show it in the trailer. I don't know. I think I'm wrong, but I'm going to go with Aneesa and CT are out for Era 1. Era 2, sticking with Aviv and Brandon. Era 3, sticking with Tony and Amanda. The Era 3 men's side is the one I am dreading losing someone the most. I don't want to lose any of these people immediately and barely get to see them, but the Era 3 men's crew, I'm a fan of all 5 being on the show. I think they all 5 deserve to be there in a very equal way. And that is the one of the 8 groups here that we're looking at, the women or the men for each era. Era 3 men's is the one where I'm like, can they please all 5 stay just for a little bit? Like, come on, I don't want any of them to go home right away. And then era 4, I'm changing this. I think it's gonna be Kyland and Nerys. I think Horacio gets through. This one's the hardest one I feel like to predict. I don't know what's going to happen with that era. They're going to be messy for sure. Let's talk finalists. Finalists for the season. Sticking with 10, 5 and 5. I assume that it'll be around that. If it's more than that, just better chances these 10 people are there. Women's side, one small change. I'm sticking with Jenny, Michelle, Tori, Rachel, and then I'm throwing in Emily over Laurel off of the back of thinking maybe we get to see those 2 in elimination. And if we do, maybe Emily pulls the upset, minor upset, and gets her way in there. So Jenny, Michelle, Tori, Rachel, Emily. And then on the men's side, I'm going Jordan, Darrell, Bananas, Corey, and Theo. That's the 10 people I think make the finals. So there I swapped Theo in for Paulie because it was either in comments or DM on Instagram. Someone astutely pointed out, I basically said in the trailer, they show us Paulie versus Theo in a hall brawl. It might be a good matchup, but Theo's got some hall brawl experience and he's a big guy. And I think he might win that if that's real, what we see. So I'm swapping him in to make the final. Those are your 10 finalists. Winners, sticking with what I said before. I think Jenny and Jordan, the Jays. Jacob predicts Jenny and Jordan. The Jays stick with the Jays. I think both of those 2, Jenny cements that she should have been invited back a whole bunch more times, that she is the best modern player we've seen probably. I mean, clearly is just a physical specimen for certain. And that Jordan is the one that pulls out the huge legacy defining, put me up in that conversation with CT and Bananas after all. Let's do it. Let's have the 3-way conversation over the men's GOAT. I think it's Jordan and Jenny. And I think they need, those are the 2 I would pick as far as if they just all ran the final. I would pick them. They would be my favorites to win on both sides. And I think they're going to get there. So that would mean that I think they're going to win. So that's your predictions. That's your super trailer. That's your launch special analysis and recap. And now we await the true beginning of the season, episode 1, kind of episode 2, but it'll be out next Wednesday night. Tune in. Again, if I've got a long list of suggestions, I appreciate every single one of them. It has been so amazing, but I'll take all of them you got just so I've got every option available to me possible. So if you get screeners and have an ability to share it, if you watch over in the UK or in France already and hey, you can log in here and do it. You can use this site. You can use this, that, or the other. This VPN works. This one doesn't. Any tips at all, let me know. And I will do my best to get the episode 1 recap out to you as quickly as I can next week and the episode 2-1 as quickly as I can the following week. Thank you for being here. Subscribe, rate, review, all that good stuff. DM at Challenge Historian on Instagram if you want to chat challenge. Otherwise, I'll talk to you soon. Peace.